Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. And this video is to bring you a closer look at the GMS number M114SC in a 26D. This is a mortise cylinder is what it is. And it's a very typical cylinder. It's an 1.25 inch long mortise cylinder, which is going to be used in lots of applications. It's a bit long to be a cylinder for a mortise lock. Those are generally 1.1 inch, but they could be 1.25 inch easily. 1.25 inch is probably a really good length for a exit device trim, or maybe a key switch. 1.25 inch might be really good for a bottom rail deadbolt, where you could use a little bit longer cylinder. It could be also used on a typical application where you have a thicker than average door. I could envision that you would use maybe 1.25 inch cylinders if you had a 2.25 thick aluminum storefront door. You know, wherever 1.25 inch is called out, here it is. So this cylinder from GMS is as follows. Okay, so it's M114. It's a mortise in 1.25 inch length. That means from the underside of the head to the back of the cam is what's 1.25 inch. Underside of the head to the back of the cam, 1.25 inch. That's how mortise cylinders are defined. And that's just the bottom line here. SC, they're giving us a 5-pin Schlage C keyway. This is the classic Schlage keyway. Very likely the second most common keyway ever. Perhaps the Quickset is more common. This is going to be available from GMS in an E keyway as well, and very likely other keyways. We'll get into that in a moment, other Schlage keyways. This has come packaged with an Adams Wright style cam as well, or maybe I should say it's come with a standard cam attached and also an Adams Wright cam. Okay, so with the standard cam, you're going to use it in your key switches, your exit device trim applications. If you're using it with almost all Adams Wright locks, except the 4700 series, you'll use this tiny little cam that they've got here for your dead latches, deadlocks, hook bolts, things of that nature. It is in US26D satin chrome finish. That is just a peel-away protective film that's there. This is made of solid brass, and that means that the manufacturer is able to produce very low machining tolerances. You know, they've got great margins between the brass cylinder plug and the mortise housing around it. Very easy to rekey, very easy to maintain. Will last decades several decades of usage. You could also use actually an 1.25 inch would work in a 1.25 inch with a standard cam. Would be very common if you had a mortise lock from the 1920s. Those old mortise locks took standard cams, and 1.25 inch would be a good length for those, because you would generally see that cylinder installed through some sort of a raised escutcheon plate scenario. So 1.25 inch could be really good for that as well. You know, there's going to be countless areas where you'll use mortise cylinders. Now, it is a 5-pin cylinder. Pardon me. It is a 5-pin key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's drilled 6. So there are 6 drilled chambers in here, so that if you needed to pass a 6-pin blank, a 6-pin key, you could. You would add your spring, your driver pin, and then pin it in your 6th chamber. Okay. Typical 1.15, 32 threads per inch. That is a universal, at least it's a North American standard, if not an American standard, for mortise cylinders. There are other sizes of mortise cylinders. There's 3/4 inch peanut cylinders. There's 1.5 inch mortise ring cylinders, but those are very unusual. And in fact, it's difficult to ever see those at all. The peanut or the mogul or the master ring cylinders, but this is the common garden variety. Okay, now GMS is a company that produces cylinders and lots of variations of cylinders. I don't know that you'll get 2 cams with every cylinder, so by all means, specify which of the 2 cams you would like. Now, moving on, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the GMS products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Now, that full product catalog is neato because you can pull up the M114. I would suggest that you perform a find function on your keyboard, get to the M114 page, and it's going to show you mortise cylinders. And as you start to look at that, you can see how the part number changes as the length changes. So they'll go from 15/16, 1 inch, inch and an eighth, inch and a quarter, inch and 3/8, inch and a half. 15/16, the M156 aluminum storefront all the time. Regular, short, that's all you need. A 1 inch, same scenario, you can use it there as well. And inch and an eighth is when you get into mortise locks. Those are generally inch and an eighth. Inch and a quarter is called out in the instances that we referred to below. Inch and 3/8, less common for me to run into, but when you get into the longer cylinders, you're usually dealing with either a thicker door or an unusual application. But a thicker door is kind of where an inch and 3/8 is going to come into play. You could easily start to look at a 2 1/4 inch thick door when you get into that range. Inch and a half, wherever you're going to use that, obviously a thicker door. Or I just ordered a couple of inch and a half long mortise cylinders for a client. They had a 3 inch thick door, steel structure door that they were putting an Adams Wright bottom rail deadbolt into. Well, inch and a half cylinders would be great in the sense that, well, they need to be a little bit shorter than 3 inch divided by 2. Well, that's going to make sense because we'll have a cylinder collar underneath each head. So a couple of inch and a half cylinders, back-to-back double cylinder, would work for that as well. The key is understanding the drawing. The underside of the head to the back of the cam, that's the dimension you're working with. Knowing the outside dimension of the head, 1.36 inch, okay, fine, inch and 3/8 basically. As you scroll further down into that catalog, you're going to see a schematic, an exploded parts drawing of how that cylinder is put together. You're going to see your spring cover and your pins, your driver pins or top pins, and then your bottom pins, the screws in the cam that hold it onto the back of the cylinder plug, and then your scalp plate they call a face cover. The point is how to order mortise cylinders is there, and I had mentioned about other keyways. Well, when you look at the Schlage options, there's more than one. Schlage C, a C123 and a C145, a CE and a CF, and then a C through K. C through K is an XX, SX. That is a composite type of keyway that will take all of the 7 C through G, C, CE, C, E, CE, EF, F, G, FG. All of those 7 blanks will pass into there. I don't recommend that you order the SX unless you absolutely have to have a cylinder plug that will receive all of those, because the way they make all different milling profiles of different keys that belong to the same multiplex families, they simply make the millings less pronounced. They make them smaller, thinner, flatter, things of that nature. There will be more slop in the broaching of the cylinder plug if you're using a composite cylinder keyway like an SX. So avoid those if at all possible. Plus, it makes it easier to have unintentional keys operating it. It does certainly make it easier to pick the cylinder open. So be mindful of that. All of the other manufacturers' keyways are there as well. Obviously, the Kwikset is very common that I run into. Siegel, not so much, but a rim cylinder, you could run into a rim cylinder as a Siegel 9. The Yales are, the Yale 8 is common. You know, you will sell them all eventually. The LA from Sargent is common. The Corbin 60, that's not unheard of. I sell those occasionally. The ASA stuff I don't get into. That's a, not that I don't get into it, but I don't have people in North America asking me for ASA stuff very often, even though it exists. But they can give you that high security sort of keyway that you'll get out of an ASA Twin 6000. If you ever want to take a trip down the lane of high security cylinder construction, Their catalog is really interesting, their technical manual. Different finishes are next. Then you get to specify the cam. The finishes are self-explanatory. Polished brass, satin bronze, satin nickel, polished chrome, satin chrome, stainless steel, and then oil rub bronze. The different cams are there. All Met was a company, a Canadian manufacturer who made locks. Their heyday was really in the second half of the 90s, and they imploded. They certainly went out of business. They came in strong, fast, hard, and heavy and closed a lot of projects, and at a certain point they could just no longer ship. And I don't know really what happened to them at that point. Adams Wright and Yale, I'm going to say that that's that 4700 series cam. It looks more like a standard cam. Best cam, Corbin, Sargent, Schlage, Yale, Falcon, SafeLock. Those would be references to their Mortise locks. And then, of course, keying. We can do any keying that you need here, any at all, for the most part. The factory can as well. So as you look at the box, you see that it says KD at the end. Okay, that means keyed differently, obviously. So following our how to order 26D, and then we have an AT. What does AT stand for? Adams, Wright, and Yale. Okay, so what they gave us there, Adams, Wright, and Yale must obviously mean an Adams, Wright cam and then a Yale cam, which was what I call the standard cam, so I'm correcting myself now. And I would say that that would apply to Adams, Wright applications and old Mortise lock applications. That could be Yale Mortise locks. That's what I would say would be the case there. Okay, since you've got that catalog open, it's awfully handy to be able to review the rest of it. They have a line of full-size FSIC or LFIC, full-size or large format interchangeable core housings that you can pass into it, different manufacturers' large format cores. Obviously small format as well. They can sell you small format cores only, combinated, mostly uncombinated, tail pieces. It's an interesting catalog to go through. The only problem with GMS is I really find that their material's not stocked anywhere. So an order from them is going to certainly be a factory order in almost all instances, so be mindful of that, which is a shame. It would be nice if someone stocked their entire line, because it is a good comprehensive line of offerings. Where can you get small format, large format housings, small format combinated cores, Mortise cylinders, rim cylinders, all from one place? Well, GMS can do it. And as you scroll through the rest of the catalog, you'll simply see variations on everything that we've just talked about. European style cylinders as well, which are known as profile cylinders. Padlocks are there. Don't see any. They have a smattering of key blanks as well. They say that those key blanks are made of solid brass, so that's nice. Solid brass would be the typical material used for key blanks. Options would be, of course, nickel silver, which will be a noticeably more durable key blank, not appropriate for use in impressioning. They're going to other key blanks would be stainless steel or aluminum or even steel, but they're sticking with just brass, which would be what you would certainly most likely always want, unless you specifically wanted nickel silver, because it is a stronger key blank. Nonetheless, their catalog is there. And if you have any questions on the GMS, this is their M114 cylinder or any other GMS product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.